After foiling a coup led by his younger brother, Jung ascends the throne of Qin. One night, while studying a map of the Chinese plains in his palace, he senses an approaching presence and quickly draws his sword. Two assassins suddenly emerge, aiming to kill him. Just as Jung is cornered, Wen Jun arrives with a group of soldiers, but the assassins effortlessly overpower them. At a critical moment, Xin appears, having been brought by Minister Jishi, who now supports King Jung. Xin engages the assassins without hesitation. Jishi reveals that he summoned Xin to appoint him as the king's personal bodyguard, recognizing that despite his past as a slave, Xin possesses exceptional swordsmanship. Xin defeats both attackers, though one manages to rise again and lunge at Jung, only to be stopped by a poisoned arrow from an ally arriving just in time. Wen Jun then orders everyone to keep the assassination attempt a secret. Soon after, a soldier brings urgent news. Wei forces have breached Qin's border at the Dakhan Plains, signaling the start of an invasion. For centuries, the 7 kingdoms of China have been locked in constant warfare, and now Wei's army is advancing into Qin territory. Eager to take part, Xin sees this battle as the first step toward his dream of becoming a great general. He begins as an infantry soldier among villagers armed with basic weapons, where he reunites with his friends Bito and Wei Ping. The infantry is divided into 5-man squads tasked with fighting together. When no one invites them to join, Xin, Bito, and Wei Ping set out to find additional members to complete their group. They soon encountered a man in unusual attire named Kukai, and not long after, another man named Zegi joined them, bringing Xin's group to 5 members. Out of nowhere, a cavalry unit rode past, prompting Zegi to tell Xin to step aside. The commander turned out to be the same man who had once helped Xin at the palace coup. B asked to speak with Xin in private and revealed that the Wei royal army had massacred Qin forces at the border. In response, King Jung appointed General Biaogong to lead a campaign against Wei. The opposing army was commanded by the formidable General Wu King, one of the 7 fire dragons. By then, Wei forces had already secured 2 hills on the Dakhan Plains, the second hill under General Wu King's control, and the first held by Commander Gong Yuan. Determined to reclaim the terrain, General Biaogong ordered his troops to focus on retaking both hills. An infantry commander, Fu Huxin, instructed Infantry Unit 4 to prepare for battle, and Xin's group happened to be part of that unit. Fu Huxin commanded them to seize the hill from Wei, even at the cost of their lives. Before long, both armies stood ready to clash. Positioned on the front lines, Xin and his fellow soldiers gripped their weapons, with Xin feeling a surge of excitement as he silently hoped Piao's spirit was watching. When the charge began, Xin sprinted ahead fearlessly. He vaulted over the enemy barricade and launched a fierce assault from behind, cutting through Wei's soldiers. The infantry behind him coordinated their attacks effectively, allowing them to hold their ground. Xin then leapt upward and managed to defeat a Wei commander stationed above. From that elevated position, he noticed something approaching rapidly. Alarmed, he shouted for his comrades to retreat. Moments later, a chariot unit barreled in, smashing through everything in its path. At the rear, a soldier reported the devastating attack to General Biaogong. Despite this, the general refused to deploy the cavalry, choosing instead to wait for more information. The decision stunned everyone. Without cavalry support, the frontline infantry faced near certain defeat. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Xin and his companions began to lose hope as reinforcements failed to arrive. At last, Kukai proposed a desperate solution, stacking fallen bodies to form a barrier against the oncoming chariots. With no better option, they quickly agreed. The surviving infantry worked together, carrying out the grim plan. They stacked the corpses in one place. Soon after, the enemy's chariot forces returned. Xin stepped forward alone, waving a flag to draw them in. As the chariots advanced, Kukai's plan proved successful. The vehicles crashed into the pile of bodies and fell into disarray. When the enemy commander, Gong Yuan, learned that his chariot unit had been destroyed, he ordered all his troops to charge down the hill and eliminate the remaining Qin infantry. Elsewhere, General Byaku received word that a group of infantry had survived and even managed to disrupt the enemy chariots. Despite this, he chose not to send reinforcements, as though he was waiting for something. That night, Shin and the surviving soldiers hid from pursuing enemies. Just as they prepared to move, enemy troops suddenly appeared and attacked. Kukai rushed in to save Wei Ping, revealing to everyone her exceptional martial skill. Before long, Wei's soldiers surrounded them. Shin urged his comrades to flee while he stayed behind to hold off the enemy. But he was quickly overwhelmed by their numbers. Kukai stepped in again. In a strange display, she began making small, rhythmic hops before suddenly bursting forward with incredible speed, cutting down multiple enemies at once. Her movements were fluid and lethal, almost like a dance. Shin was stunned by her swordsmanship. Despite their efforts, more enemies kept arriving. Eventually, Kukai grew exhausted. In the struggle, a soldier knocked off her mask, exposing that she was a woman. As enemy forces continued to close in, Shin told her to escape. In the end, both of them leapt into a ravine. Later, Shin awoke, his body wrapped in bandages, while Kukai beside him appeared unharmed. Curious, he asked why she had chosen to go to war. Kukai revealed that she sought revenge for her sister's death. The one responsible was now in the state of Wei. She explained that she came from the Qiyu clan, a feared group of assassins who lived in seclusion in the mountains. From childhood, its members were trained to become ruthless killers. To choose the clan's successor, known as the Qiyu, the strongest candidates were forced to fight until only one remained. In the past, both Kukai and her sister were chosen as candidates, but her sister, unwilling to see her die, secretly used a sleeping drug. Kukai did not wake up the following day. When she finally regained consciousness, she was met with a horrifying scene. Corpses were strewn across the battlefield. Among them, she discovered her sister, decapitated and lifeless. From that moment on, Kukai resolved to kill Yulian, the one who had slain her sister. Shin was furious upon hearing this. He insisted that Kukai must keep living. Shin himself had also lost someone dear to him, a friend like a brother named Piao. Beyond avenging Piao's death, Shin was determined to carry out his fallen friend's unfulfilled ambition of becoming a great general. Shin told Kukai that she had to continue her sister's unfinished dream, saying it would give her purpose in life. The next day, Shin and Kukai reunited with their remaining companions, all of whom were overjoyed to see them alive. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the Qin Kingdom's surviving infantry continued to resist the enemy assault. From the base of a hill, situated between the battlefield and the enemy commander's headquarters, Shin and his group observed the ongoing fighting. They decided to ascend the hill and launch an attack on the enemy headquarters, despite being only 30 strong. As they began their climb, enemy soldiers appeared and blocked their path. Their movement was soon detected by Commander Yuan, who ordered 2,000 troops to descend and engage Shin's group. Elsewhere, General Byogong learned that 30 infantrymen were attempting to scale the hill toward the enemy headquarters. In response, he ordered a full cavalry charge. Captain Fusen led his forces forward, breaking through enemy lines to reach Shin and his unit. Ultimately, Fusen's cavalry succeeded in linking up with Shin at the foot of the hill. He then instructed Shin and the others to continue their advance toward the enemy commander's position. Encouraged, they pushed through the forest, but were soon met by a large enemy force. Fusen ordered them not to engage in prolonged combat, but to force their way through. In the end, Shin and his comrades managed to break through successfully. Impressed by Shin's exceptional abilities, Fusen invited him to join the cavalry's advance up the hill. However, Shin hesitated, concerned for his remaining companions. Bito and Wepping reassured him, encouraging him to go ahead, believing he could help secure victory for Commander Fusen. Finally, Shin asked Kukai to stay behind and protect their friends while he moved forward. Fusen and his troops started pushing up the hill through the forest. At the same time, the others held back the incoming enemy forces. Kukai told Wepping to withdraw, but Wepping refused. He had already accepted that he might die there. Hearing this, Kukai was reminded of her older sister. She thought about how her older sister had always dreamed of adventure and seeing the outside world. Determined to fulfill that wish, Kukai ordered his comrades to continue up the hill while she stayed behind alone to delay the enemy. Meanwhile, at the summit, Shin and Captain Fuhusen finally arrived. Commander Yuan, noticing them, ordered his archers to open fire. Many Qin soldiers were cut down in the barrage. Fuhusen was struck by arrows but continued forward, while Shin rushed ahead through the volleys and eventually killed the archer commander. After the archers were defeated, Fuhusen moved toward Commander Yuan, who suddenly stabbed him in the abdomen. Even while mortally wounded, Fuhusen struck back and killed Yuan with a stab to the neck. With their commander dead, the Wei forces began to retreat, and the remaining Qin soldiers mourned Fuhusen, who also fell. Weeping and the others later reached Shin at the top of the hill. Zui told them they had survived because Kukai had fought to protect them. As Shin's group prepared to descend from the opposite side, they were stunned to find a large enemy army already assembled below, led by General Wo King. At that moment, Great General Wang Qi arrived with his forces from behind. Wang Qi climbed the hill to meet Shin and the others, who were relieved and hopeful that he would join the battle. However, Wang Qi refused, stating that he had no authorization to take part in the war and was only there to enjoy the view from the hill. Watching the enemy formations below, he noted that General Wo King was a highly capable strategist of Wei, but added that battles are not always decided by strategy alone. Sometimes instinct can be even more dangerous. From their position above, Shin and the others then spotted General B advancing with a smaller unit. As the Qin forces advanced toward the vastly larger Wei royal army, they saw General Biaogong successfully break through a battalion of Wei troops. In response, General Wu King deployed chariot units to counterattack. General Wang Qi told Shin that battles sometimes require unpredictable actions to alter their course. Victory demands that a general be willing to make sacrifices. That is the essence of leadership in war. Shin came to understand this fully. Realizing he too must be ready to sacrifice to become a true general, he immediately mounted his horse and rushed into the battlefield to assist Biaogong. When he arrived, Shin found himself surrounded by enemy chariots. The disruption threw the chariot formation into chaos, causing them to collide with the wreckage ahead. Concerned officers urged General Wu King to retreat due to the deteriorating situation, but he refused. General Biaogong then confronted Wu King directly, challenging him to a one-on-one duel. Wu King accepted and ordered his men not to intervene. It was revealed that Wu King bore deep hatred toward Qin, whose forces had killed his family during the war. His actions were driven by vengeance and a desire to bring down Qin. In response, Biaogong remarked that war leaves suffering on all sides. Grief and loss exist everywhere, which is why conflict never truly ends. Qin was reminded of King Jung's vision of unifying China to end warfare altogether. The two generals advanced and clashed. With their commander defeated, the Wei army was forced to retreat. Biaogong secured victory without further loss of life. Qin went after Kukai, who was preparing to leave. Qin warned her that traveling alone would be dangerous, reminding her that she was part of the Qin army family. He asked Kukai to wait and trust that her chance for revenge would come in time, and invited her to continue fighting alongside them as they traveled across China seeking victory. After hearing this, Kukai reconsidered and chose to stay. The Qin royal troops were warmly received by the people of Qin. In the end, Qin was promoted to a commander, not through connections, but because of his accomplishments and the strong support he received from many soldiers. Shortly afterward, Jiao presented the findings of his investigation into the attempted assassination of the king, and Jiao suspected that only one man had the audacity and capability to do it: Prime Minister Moubu. At that moment, it was announced that Prime Minister Moubu had returned from his official trip and requested an audience with King Jung. The king granted permission, and Moubu entered with several guards, congratulating the Qin royal army on their victory over Wei. He then brought up the recent attempt on the king's life. This immediately deepened King Jung's suspicions, since the incident had been strictly kept secret. How could Moubu have known about it? Although anger spread among those present, no one could act against him due to his immense authority. He had effectively governed the kingdom for years, while King Jung was still too young to rule. Moubu then offered to have his subordinates investigate the assassination attempt himself, and the king agreed. As a result, King Jung's ambition to unify China became even more difficult to achieve, as internal instability within the Qin kingdom remained unresolved. This marks the conclusion of Kingdom 2, far and away. After the battle, Xin begins training under General Uki, determined to fulfill his ambition of becoming a great general like him. Uki soon entrusts him with a mission to quell a rebellion in a region plagued by constant conflict. In just 6 months, Xin and his companions successfully restore order. Impressed by his progress, General Uki names Xin as his favored disciple. In 244 BC, more than 100,000 troops from the Jiao kingdom advanced toward the border city of Kansui. In Xianyang, the Qin capital, King Jung is promptly informed that Kansui is under attack. Minister Jun panics, noting that no capable generals are available since they are all away on assignments. With few options left, King Jung reluctantly turns to Prime Minister Liu Buwei for assistance, despite doubts about his loyalty. Meanwhile, strategists begin assessing the enemy's strength, with Jiao, still a student of military tactics. An officer named Meng Yi points out that Jiao harbors deep resentment toward Qin. 16 years earlier, in Changping, 400,000 surrendered Jiao soldiers were massacred, buried alive by Qin forces, as Jiao appears to have gained new leadership, giving them the confidence to strike Qin once more. At the same time, Kansui has already fallen to Jiao forces led by the brilliant general Fangji. Soon after, another general, Wang Ji, commands his troops to carry out a brutal massacre. He claimed this marked only the start of Jiao's vengeance. 16 years earlier, in the Qin royal palace, Prime Minister Lu Bu appeared before the king as a soldier delivered grim news. Kansui city had fallen to enemy forces, and every citizen had been slaughtered. Enraged, Lu Bu urged the king to immediately assemble an army to confront Jiao. In response, all remaining forces were mobilized to face the impending invasion. Civilian soldiers who had once fought in the Battle of Dakhan Plains were recalled, and the siblings Bitu and Weping set out alongside them. Soon after, another report arrived at the palace. Jiao's army was advancing toward Bio City, their final defensive stronghold. If it fell, the path to the capital, Xianyang, would be wide open. Lu Bu proposed his trusted subordinate, General Mengwu, to command the front lines. However, Jun opposed the suggestion, arguing that the commander must excel in both offense and defense. While Mengwu was a formidable attacker, his defensive capabilities were lacking. Though irritated, Lu Bu conceded that Jun's reasoning was sound. The issue remained that no suitable general was available, until the sudden arrival of Great General Wang Qi, leaving the court puzzled as to who had summoned him. Ping Jun, one of Lu Bu's subordinates, stepped forward and revealed that he had called for Wang Qi, believing him to be the only one capable of leading the army at such a critical moment. Though displeased, Mengwu could not object due to Ping Jun's higher rank and withdrew. Wang Qi then requested privacy with the king, asking everyone else to leave. After the chamber cleared, Xin secretly listened in. Wang Qi revealed that Jung, the son of the king of Qin, had been taken as a child to Jiao as a war hostage, where he endured relentless abuse. He then pressed the king on his true motive for unifying China. Was it merely revenge? King Jung answered that his ambition stemmed not from vengeance, but from a promise he had once made to a woman named Shika. After the massacre of 400,000 Jiao royal soldiers in Choe, Jung was abandoned in the capital of the Jiao kingdom. As a descendant of the Qin royal family, he became a target of cruelty, bullied, tortured, and ultimately forced into slavery just to survive. One day, a woman named Shika rescued him from a violent mob. Shika, who worked as a smuggler, was tasked with secretly escorting him back home. Together with her sibling Yamen and an undercover officer, Dao Jian, Shika hid Jung inside a chest and smuggled him past multiple checkpoints. During a brief rest, Jung asked why she would risk so much for him. Shika revealed that she and Yamen were orphans who had lost their parents in the war and were once saved by a smuggler themselves, an act that inspired her to help him now. They eventually cleared the final checkpoint, though not without danger. A soldier shot an arrow into the chest to inspect it, but Jung remained perfectly still, allowing them to pass. When they were finally safe, they discovered the arrow had pierced his hand. Shaken, Jung experienced a vision of himself declaring he was unworthy of becoming king. Panicked, He fled into the grasslands, with Shika following close behind. Showing her his bleeding hand, he explained that he felt no pain, having grown numb from years of abuse, and questioned whether someone like him deserved to rule. Shika reassured him that his destiny was unavoidable. She believed in his goodness, and that he would one day become a king who protects his people. As they resumed their journey, troops from the Jiao kingdom began pursuing them. Shika urged the horses forward, while Dao Jian and Yamen defended the rear. Even after being struck by an arrow, Shika pressed on, telling Jung to stay hidden. Though Yamen and Dao Jian fought back, their defenses broke under the assault. Dao Jian gave his life to protect Jung, and despite Jung's attempt to help, Yamen stopped him. Soon after, Yamen was mortally wounded as well. With his final strength, Yamen urged Jung to become a king who would one day end the war. Then, in a last act of defiance, he charged at the enemy. Shika came under attack and instructed Jung to take command while he picked up a bow and continued fighting the enemy, striking back repeatedly. Although wounded by enemy forces, Shika tried to hold out until the Qin reinforcements led by Wenjun arrived. Once the situation stabilized, Jung found her drenched in blood. Near death, Shika asked Jung that if he ever became king, he must bring an end to the wars. Jung vowed to fulfill that wish. Jung then spoke to General Wang Qi, saying his ambition was not only for Shika, but for all those who had died on the battlefield. He intended to end the age of war and become the first ruler to unify China. Hearing this, Wang Qi ordered Xin to summon the ministers and agreed to personally lead the army at the front against Jiao. The following day at the Qin military camp, Xin and his companion reunited with comrades they had previously fought alongside on the plains. Xin was appointed commander of a 100-man unit. While his former allies trusted his abilities, the new recruits underestimated him. Xin explained that he could not yet disclose the mission details because General Wang Qi had not issued orders. He then introduced his two vice commanders, En and Kukai. The unit became even more enthusiastic upon learning that Kukai was a highly skilled swordswoman. That night, Xin and Kukai trained with swords. When Xin asked her to perform her sword dance again, she refused, explaining that using it would inevitably cause someone to die, as she becomes overtaken by a godlike force that makes her kill uncontrollably. Xin expressed admiration. In the palace, Wenjun questioned Wang Qi's decision to lead troops on the front lines, despite having planned to retire. Wang Qi replied that, aside from his respect for King Jing, he also sought personal revenge. The next day, General Wang Qi's cavalry finally arrived at the front lines, where they were met with cheers from everyone, including Xin and his unit. The Qin army eventually confronted the Jiao forces directly in front of the fortress of Bio City. General Wang Qi then ordered his troops to continue advancing toward the right flank. Observing this, Jiao generals Jiao Zhuang, Fangji, and Wan Ji concluded that the Qin were deliberately drawing them toward the KH Plains, an area surrounded by hills. Refusing the challenge would make them appear cowardly, so the Jiao army ultimately agreed and moved on to the plains. At that point, both kingdoms had fully deployed their forces on the battlefield. From a hilltop, Meng Yi and Jiao observed the entire situation firsthand. They noted that the battlefield was divided into 3 fronts by steep terrain. Meng Yi saw that on the right flank, 40,000 Jiao soldiers under General Wei faced 30,000 Qin troops. On the left, 10,000 elite Qin soldiers led by General Wang Qi confronted 20,000 troops under Fangji. In the center, 40,000 Qin soldiers, 20,000 under General Meng Wu and 20,000 under Wang Qi, faced an equal force of 40,000 Jiao troops led by General Jiao Zhuang. Meng Yi judged the situation to be extremely unfavorable. He began to wonder what strategy Wang Qi intended to use. The battle then commenced. Meng Wu led the central Qin forces into combat. On the right flank, enemy movement also began. Wang Qi then ordered the 10,000 elite soldiers on the left flank to advance. He later explained to Xin that the outcome of the left flank battle against Fengji's forces would be decisive. His plan was to eliminate Fangji, as that would secure victory. Recalling a previous successful hill assault, Wang Qi ordered Xin and his unit to repeat the tactic. this time to secretly climb the hills and assassinate General Fangji. The mission shocked the others, as it was effectively a suicide assignment. However, Shin remained confident, despite commanding only 100 men, believing they could succeed. As a mark of trust and recognition, Wang Qi named them the Hai Shin Unit, meaning flying arrow, a force meant to strike directly at the enemy's heart. With that, the Hai Shin Unit began moving silently and covertly into position. Kukai ensured their position remained concealed from enemy sight at the hilltop. They soon discovered an elite enemy force of 10,000 men engaged in battle against General Fangji's 20,000-strong army. The elite force quickly came under heavy pressure, overwhelmed by attacks from all sides. Meanwhile, Shin and his men noticed a large number of enemy soldiers guarding the cliff ahead. To break through, Shin needed someone powerful enough to create an opening, so he chose Long Chuan. However, despite his strength, Long Chuan hesitated. He was afraid of dying, as his child had just been born. Shin reminded him that failure would lead to the annihilation of the elite force already engaged in combat, the possible collapse of the Qin army, and even the slaughter of their families back home. Moved by his words, Long Chuan and the others regained their resolve and prepared to fight with everything they had. Shin's unit then launched their attack. When Fangji was informed that only 100 soldiers were advancing toward him, he dismissed them as insignificant. Eventually, Shin and his men descended and advanced toward Fangji, who still paid them little attention. Shin observed that Fangji remained positioned at the center of his army. Elsewhere, General Wang Qi had already anticipated that Fangji would concentrate most of his forces against the elite 10,000, creating an opening for Shin's unit. Shin and his troops forcefully broke through enemy lines. Fangji attempted to retreat. However, it was already too late. Shin leapt forward and succeeded in killing the general. Witnessed their leader being killed, and the Jiao soldiers' left flank immediately halted their assault before retreating. Qin commanders then announced that Shin of the Hai Shin Unit had slain General Fangji, prompting cheers across the battlefield. Shortly after, General Jung ordered a full withdrawal of his forces. From the high ground, Meng Yi and Jiao observed that the Jiao army had not truly retreated. At that moment, two unknown individuals arrived and requested to watch the battle alongside Meng Yi and Jiao. Seeing that the Jiao forces had not surrendered, General Wang Qi became wary, suspecting that another commander had replaced Fangji. He ordered his troops to remain on high alert, preparing for another engagement the following day. Meanwhile, although Shin and his unit had completed their mission, they mourned the loss of 31 comrades who had fallen earlier that afternoon. General Wang Qi later arrived and explained that naming Shin's unit was meant to make its presence feared across the battlefield. By killing a great general like Fangji, Shin's unit had now gained widespread recognition and terror, and those who died in it would be remembered as heroes. That night, as Shin and his men ate, a mysterious man carrying a large spear walked past. When questioned, he remained silent. Some soldiers attempted to confront him, but he effortlessly cut them down. Elsewhere in the palace, panic spread upon hearing that the current Jiao commander was General Hoken. Wang Jun revealed that Hoken had once killed General Qiu, Wang Qi's former fiancé, and believed he had already been killed by Wang Qi. However, it turned out Hoken was still alive, and Wang Qi likely knew this when he accepted command of the front lines. Back on the battlefield, the man easily evaded their attacks. As Shin and Kukai stepped in to face the intruder, the man easily evaded their attacks. When Shin asked who he was, the stranger revealed himself as the embodiment of the war god, Hoken. This marks the conclusion of the storyline of Kingdom 3, Flame of Destiny. At the conclusion of Kingdom 3, it is revealed that the Qin army, under General Uki's command, managed to repel the Jiao forces attempting to capture the Baiyu region. At the same time, Jiao and Meng Yi were surprised by a visit from two enigmatic figures, a man and a woman named Riboku and Kane. Despite Qin holding the advantage, the Jiao army remained determined. They drew Qin's troops into a rocky valley, where General Uki detected the presence of a formidable new adversary with extraordinary strength. This enemy also turned out to be the longtime rival of General Uki, someone he had killed 9 years earlier. A formidable new foe soon emerged at the Haishin unit's camp. He swiftly cut down several soldiers. He revealed his true name, Hoken. At this moment that the story of Kingdom 4 truly begins. Shin and Kukai attempted to take on Hoken together, but he overwhelmed them without difficulty. Kukai then resorted to her signature jumping execution strike, a technique that had never been countered before. However, when she launched her attack, Hoken effortlessly evaded every blow. When Hoken was about to kill Kukai, Shin managed to save her, after which he commanded his soldiers to hurl spears at Hoken. However, Hoken effortlessly deflected them. Shin then unleashed his final technique in a last attempt to strike Hoken again, but it proved ineffective. Ultimately, Hoken overpowered Shin using his own technique. Seeing Shin overwhelmed, all his troops are forced back by Hoken's relentless attacks. Before long, reinforcements arrive. Kin steps in to support Regini's forces and informs him that Hoken is the supreme commander of the Jiao army. As they move to strike Hoken, Jiao troops led by Mangoku and Wanji appear, sparking a fierce clash between the two sides. Amid the chaos, Regini seizes the chance to withdraw from the battlefield with Shin and Kukai. During their retreat, the group carrying Shin becomes separated from the one escorting Kukai. Before they can get far, General Wanji discovers them. The remaining troops scatter in different directions to avoid detection. Weeping notices that Bito has suffered a severe stomach wound and is losing blood. Realizing the Jiao army could track them through the blood trail, Weeping gives Bito cloth to bandage the wound. He then asks Bito to take Shin in another direction, hoping the enemy will pursue him instead. After traveling a considerable distance, Bito collapses in a field, unable to continue. As he drifts in and out of consciousness, he and Shin reminisce about their childhood. He urges Shin not to abandon his dream of becoming a great general. Meanwhile, in a village, Bito's wife Yuri visits a temple with Weeping's wife, Tobi. Both feel uneasy about their husband's fate and pray for their safety. During the prayer, Yuri suddenly hears Bito's voice apologizing. At that same moment, Shin realizes that Bito has died. The loss devastates him. The next morning, the Haishin unit regroups, including Weeping and Kukai, who had been separated the previous night. One of the members, Hairu, asks about Shin and Bito. Weeping explains that he deliberately sent Bito in a different direction to divert the Jiao army. Just then, Shin returns carrying Bito's body. He apologizes and confirms that Bito has passed away. Bito's death brings the entire Haishin unit to tears, grieving deeply for their fallen comrade, recognizing the great contributions he made. After Bito is laid to rest, Shin and Kukai discuss Hoken's strength. Kukai reveals that his power did not come from fasting or spiritual practices, but from relentless effort, repeating his training tens of thousands of times. The deadly technique that made Shin cough up blood is one commonly used by the Ryu clan, Kukai's clan, designed to kill enemies from within. Strangely, however, Shin manages to endure the attack and recover in a short time. Later, Shin reunites with General Aoki's army and reports that only 36 men remain in his unit. Despite their small number, he refuses to give up and continues fighting to the very end. General Uki feels proud, believing that naming the unit after him truly reflects Shin's unyielding spirit. Elsewhere, General Moubu and General Kanu are battling Jiao forces at a valley entrance. During the fight, Moubu spots Hoken, one of Jiao's top generals, and immediately pursues him with the intent to kill. Seeing Moubu advancing deeper into the valley, General Kanu follows and warns him not to go too far, as he will lose sight of General Oki's signals. Ignoring the warning, Moubu continues the chase and appears to kill Hoken with ease. However, he quickly senses something is off. Hoken should not have been that weak, Soon it becomes clear that the man he killed was not the real Hoken. At that same moment, Jiao forces led by General Chu Su suddenly appear and surround Moubu's army. Meanwhile, King Jung receives a visit from Queen Yotanwa, leader of the mountain tribes. Yotanwa informs the king about the massacre of 100,000 mountain warriors. Contrary to what was shown in the mid-credits scene, the fallen were not Qin's soldiers, but members of the barbarian tribes. Known for their dominance in mountain warfare, the tribe's defeat leads Yotanwa to conclude that a brilliant strategist must be behind it. Her investigation points to one of Jiao's 3 great generals, a mysterious man named Riboku, who had previously visited Jiao and Meng Yi. At that moment, Riboku is summoned, startling Jiao when she realized that the man beside him was actually their enemy. Riboku's right-hand woman, Kane, then explained to Jiao that strategists can be even more ruthless than generals who fight on the front lines. Despite this, Riboku chose not to kill her. At the same time, General Uki and Shin entered the valley to support Moubu. Uki immediately instructed his right-hand man, General To, to carry out his plan. To charged into battle, using his spinning sword technique to cut down Jiao's army. Following this, Uki tasked Shin to engage the forces encircling Moubu. Without hesitation, Shin and his troops launched their attack. Uki himself advanced onto the battlefield. Upon his arrival, Uki finally came face-to-face with his longtime rival, Hoken. Recognizing that 2 supreme generals had met, the Jiao army raised a flag signaling an imminent duel between them. Before the clash began, the scene shifted to King Jung, who was speaking with his advisor. Wen Jun then recounted a story about Uki from 21 years earlier. Back then, the Qin kingdom had a beautiful female general named Qiu. She was born from a relationship between King Jung's father and a low-ranking Qin soldier. Fearing she might become entangled in a succession struggle or be ridiculed for her origins, King So entrusted her to General Uki's father, where she was raised by the household staff. Growing up in the Uki household, Qiu developed a deep admiration for Uki, inspired by his constant victories. Her admiration grew so strong that she dreamed of becoming his wife. However, to achieve that, she needed to rise to the rank of Supreme General by conquering 100 castles. In time, Qiu became a general and served as Uki's aide. She earned praise from King after successfully conquering numerous castles. However, this attention eventually led her to discover that the king was actually her father. Even after learning the truth, Qiu chose not to involve herself in the struggle for the throne. Instead, she remained devoted to her goal of becoming Uki's wife. One day, Uki met Qiu and informed her that they had been assigned a mission to capture their 100th castle, meaning that if she succeeded, she would finally achieve her dream. Qiu became very motivated. However, during the 100th mission, Qiu was killed by Zhou General, also known as Hoken. Seeing his soulmate die, Uki became furious and used that rage to kill Hoken. However, a few hours after being killed, Hoken somehow came back to life. This is why Hoken is called the God of War, as he possesses godlike abilities. The focus then moves to General Uki and Hoken as they prepare to face each other in a duel before their troops. Throughout the fight, they proved to be evenly matched and immensely strong. Despite Hoken's remarkable martial prowess, he is ultimately overcome by General Uki. As Uki is about to deliver the finishing blow, Riboku suddenly appears with his army. His arrival breaks Uki's concentration, preventing him from killing Hoken. Realizing too late, Uki understands he has been caught in Riboku's plan. Riboku then orders a battalion to attack Uki's forces and sends one of his generals to secretly assassinate Uki with arrows. Meanwhile, General Chuso attempts to return to the kingdom, but his move is discovered by General To, who immediately pursues him and kills him with a single strike. General Uki starts to run out of strategies. He addresses his troops, encouraging them to stand firm and not lose hope, urging them to fight fiercely like wild beasts regardless of the odds. His words reignite their determination and morale. General Uki returns to his duel with Hoken. Meanwhile, Shin and Kukai spot one of Riboku's generals preparing to shoot at them with a bow. Acting immediately, Shin rushes forward to stop the archer. As he closes in, he is hit by a horse. Even in his weakened state, General Oki still attempts to kill Hoken. However, Hoken unsheaths his weapon and gets ready to decapitate Oki. Just then, Shin intervenes and successfully blocks Hoken's strike. Moments later, General To commands a full retreat of his forces. Generals Moubu and Kanu then open a path, allowing Shin and Oki to escape. At the same time, Kane questions Riboku about why he chose not to chase after Uki. Riboku explains that Uki serves as a symbolic, almost martyr-like figure for Chin. Killing him immediately would have provoked overwhelming rage among Chin's forces, driving them to relentlessly hunt down the Jiao army. Riboku understood that such fury would likely cost him his life. For that reason, he allowed Uki to withdraw and receive a proper burial. After departing the battlefield, Uki assembles his troops and entrusts them to General Tu, his loyal companion of many years. In his final moments, Uki instructs Shin to continue honing his skills by taking part in future battles, gaining experience, and learning the art of warfare. As he dies, seated upright, Uki passes his weapon on to Shin. News of Uki's death eventually reaches King Jang and his close friend Shohukun, who is deeply shaken upon hearing of his passing. The following morning, Shin leads Uki's soldiers back to the capital, Xianyang, to lay him to rest. Before entering the city, Shin addresses the troops, encouraging them to stay strong. He also declares that Shin has effectively won, having forced the Jiao army to retreat. The story concludes with Shin leading his men, now wielding General Uki's weapon.